Good morning. Shabbat Shalom. It's my honor today to share a teaching that really moved my heart, written, I thought, extremely well by Cantor Chanin Becker. It's in an anthology of writings mostly by rabbis, and I was excited to see a piece by a cantor, by a chazan, and it is focusing on the soul trait of humility, what we call in our Musar practice, our soul development practice, anava. A story is told about Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, the founder of the modern Musar movement, walking home late one evening and passing by the window of a shoemaker. When Rabbi Salanter observed the man working diligently, mending shoes late into the night by only the flickering light of a candle, he wondered why he would allow his work to so dominate his life. But the rabbi made a misjudgment, and the shoemaker explained succinctly, "As long as the candle burns, Rabbi, there is still time to mend." This story is told often as the impetus for a consistent inner life practice, a Musar practice. And this little story provides a metaphor for our ethical obligation to savor every moment of our lives as an opportunity to improve our character. Indeed, as long as the candle burns, there is still time to mend. In Parshat Ha'azinu that we read today, Moses epitomizes this teaching. Even as the candle of his life burns quite low, he demonstrates why he is rightfully considered to be an exemplar of the trait of humility. The Torah calls Moses a very humble man, more so than any other human being on earth. That was back in the book of Numbers, chapter 12. We ought not be surprised that his final song offers a glimpse into the types of humility that Moses personified throughout his life. At first glance, Moses appears to be anything but humble, an adjective commonly understood to mean pulling ourselves back or shrinking ourselves, when he gathers all the Israelites around him and calls on no less than heaven and earth to witness his song. In the world of Musar, our soul practice, however, humility has a particular definition, and for those of you who have studied Musar, it is always so appropriate to revisit this soul trait because it's often the first one that we meet when we begin studying Musar. Alan Marinus writes that humility is about taking up the proper amount of space in the universe. Proper humility means having the right relationship to self, giving self neither too big nor too small a role in your life. If we are truly humble, we understand our appropriate role in the situations we encounter and take up space accordingly. Rabbi Abraham Isaac Cook elaborated, humility is associated with a kind of spiritual perfection. When humility affects depression, it is defective. When it is genuine, it inspires joy, courage, and inner dignity. On the one hand, we learn to worship God and not our own egos. On the other, we do not overlook our strengths nor shirk from decisions that are ours to make. With this understanding of humility, Moses and this Torah portion appear a little bit different. The words of this song are not a display of hubris. Instead, they're the vehicles by which Moses demonstrates the humility of letting go at the appropriate moment with precisely the right amount of gravitas. Imagine if a leader who figured so prominently in the Israelites' lives, who was shepherd, orator, judge, and prophet to generations, had simply faded away with no final message. The very act of leaving a potent charge for his followers illustrates Moses' knowledge of his rightful place in the community. Despite his very deep emotional needs and feelings around the prospect of dying, Moses does not seclude himself or hold back his wisdom. In fact, the tone of his song suggests that the need to take up the appropriate amount of space intensifies for Moses, even as his candle is burning to its end, as the reality sets in that he will no longer be physically present to instruct his flock. Beyond the content of his words, the method by which Moses delivers his message reaffirms that he knows his place. In contrast to the countless utterances that Moses has spoken until now, here, for the first time since the parting of the Sea of Reeds, Moses breaks into song. With so little time left to offer his guidance, Moses makes a choice. As the late Rabbi Jonathan Sachs describes, Moses had to sum up his prophetic message in a way that the people would always remember and be inspired by. He knew that the best way of doing so was with music. So the last thing Moses did before giving the people his blessing was to teach them a song. When language aspires to the transcendent and the soul longs to break free of the pull of the earth, it modulates into song. Moses chose song instead of prose because he understood the need for transcendence at that moment. He knew the Israelites required a message that would last beyond the days or months that they would mourn him. They needed words that could be internalized and persist throughout the ages, and they do. Given Moses' uniquely significant role, the enduring nature of a song afforded him the opportunity to be appropriately humble, to offer words that begin to accommodate the depth of loss his people would soon face. As he began to sing, Moses exudes anava, humility. He said, if you noticed, "May my discourse come down as the rain, my speech distill as the dew, like showers on young growth, like droplets on the grass." Moses admits that he cares deeply about how his message is received. He hopes his statements will reach the listener's ears not as harsh chastisements, but as drops of dew on the grass, as cleansing as a rain that feeds a thirsty earth. I guess that's why I was thinking ahead to the rain blessing. Though the content of the song is strongly worded, as you noticed, Moses wanted the Israelites to experience his poetry as nourishment, as a melody that would sustain and help them to thrive. Notably, he doesn't say his thoughts are commandments or even teachings. Instead, he prays that his song will be life-giving and thirst-quenching to the listeners. Then he turned his attention to the only true sustainer, to the Holy One of blessing. He engaged in the most striking act of humility that we see in the portion. He said, "For the name of the Eternal I proclaim, give glory to our God." Moses could have filled the final song with images of what Moses, had done for the Israelites. Torah readers know that Moses made immense sacrifices to lead the people from slavery to freedom, and his dying breaths could have been a golden opportunity to glorify all his accomplishments. But Moses, filled with humility, directed his followers to retain perspective and remember that it is the presence or absence of God that ultimately determines the quality of our lives. By focusing on God's role at that particular moment in his own life, Moses drove home a point. Remember, no matter what you accomplish or achieve, even if you achieve as much as I, Moses, have in one lifetime, God is the true object of praise, not our own egos. In the words of Rabbi Yehuda Leib Chasman, a humble person is one who understands that all his strengths and accomplishments are a gift from heaven. Again, a truly humble person understands that his or her strengths and accomplishments are a gift from heaven. The more a person recognizes this, the more humble he will be. At the end of his song, Moses says, "Take to heart all the words with which I have warned you this day. Enjoin them upon your children, that they may observe faithfully all the terms of this teaching." This is not a trifling thing for you. It is your very life. Through it you shall endure on the land that you will come to possess upon crossing the Jordan. In his last few moments on earth, Moses gives us a powerful tool to preserve our humility, our correct space, taking up a little more where we might shrink, and maybe holding back where we might be tempted to take up too much. The message is simple, though the task is great. Knowing our space is a lifelong pursuit, but the study of Torah is a certain way to begin. The teachings of our Torah, of this ancient tradition, have the great capacity to bring balance between taking up too much space and not enough. Let us endeavor to do that in the new year. Shabbat Shalom.